much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just realized I'd welcome the new joinees, but then I'd dip out, so they wouldn't even know who I am. So I just come and go. I used to go here, I promise. All right.
No, I do realize I joined in a bit quick.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our pet psychology workshop here at MindTribe. So today we will be going through a bit about the relationship that we have with our pets and how they can also experience stress and mental disabilities in a way, and kind of go over how they look in your pets, how to recognize them, and how we can aid them in their journey, as well as how they can aid us when we are also feeling low. So let's get into it. Next slide, please. Right. So just about the hosts who are here today, we'll just go one by one and introduce ourselves quickly. So Anasha, if you could go first.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Anyasha, and I'll be one of your hosts today for today's workshop. I'm very excited about this workshop, and I'm really happy to see so many pet lovers here. So warm welcome to you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rini. So I'm a junior psychologist at MindTribe. I have an MSc in psychological research methods, and I mainly work with anxiety, overthinking, and trauma. So I will be one of your hosts, and I do look forward to interacting with all of you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Shweta Naidu. So I've completed my master's in clinical psychology. Also, my specialties are relationship trauma and stress. Warm welcome to all of you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shruti, and I'm one of your co-hosts for today. And I'm currently working as a junior psychologist at MindTribe. I work with people who are dealing with depression, anxiety, and trauma-related concerns. And I truly believe that therapy is about making a difference, even if it's helping one person change one small behavior. Yes, welcome you all.
Thank you, everybody. So my name is Sanya Singh, and I have studied clinical psychology as well as having a master's in counseling. My specialties are grief, depression, and narcissistic abuse, and I'll be one of your hosts today as well. So just a quick reminder for everybody to keep their mics and cameras off throughout the session. If you have any questions or queries, you can put it in the chat or wait till the end of the workshop so that we can address it together. All right, then let's start this workshop together.
All right. Thank you so much, Sanya, for that. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer here. But before we go to this disclaimer, I also just want to welcome everyone once again from this workshop called From Stress to Snuggles, which is our workshop on pet psychology led by the psychologist at MindTribe. Before I dive in, I would just like to, I'm just curious how many of you have pets at home, if everyone attending this workshop are pet lovers, and if you do have pets, what type of pet you have, if it's a cat or a dog, anything that barks, meows, or even just stares back lovingly counts. So you can put that in the chat. And briefly, I just want to talk about, how today we'll go beyond the cute cuddles and we'll explore what's really going on inside our pets, try to understand their minds, their emotions, and subtle ways they try to communicate with us. And hopefully by the end, we'll all be able to understand that our pets, they're not just companions, but emotional beings with their own psychological worlds. And our goal here is to, help you move from just owning a pet to truly understanding one. So grab your cup of coffee or tea, get comfy, and let's begin our journey from stress to struggles. So yeah, coming to the disclaimer slide, before we start, a quick important note that this workshop is for educational purposes only. We'll be sharing psychological insights into animal behavior, but it is not a substitute for professional veterinary or behavioral advice, okay? And also, I want you guys to remember that every pet is unique. What works for one may not work for the other. So if you're dealing with serious behavioral or medical concerns, please reach out to a qualified vet or behaviorist. Also, some stories or examples may touch on sensitive topics like pet trauma or neglect. So if at any point at all you need a break, or you feel, feel free to step away and rejoin when you're ready. And finally, this is a safe, compassionate space. So you can share freely, ask questions, or even tell us funny stories about your pets. It's a judgment-free zone. I promise that. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So here are a few workshop reminders. This, again, it's a no judgment zone. So every experience, whether you're a first-time pet parent or a lifelong rescuer, it is valid. And what happens here stays here. We want to respect each other's privacy and our pets. Another thing is try to be present. Sorry, I know the urge to check your phone is strong, but your pets deserve your full heart for this hour. And when we share, let's do it so respectfully. Listen actively and allow others to speak as well. Again, Sanya covered this, but cameras off and mics muted unless we are open for discussion. This helps us stay focused and connected. And if you have any questions, because we have a lot of content to cover, you can just put that on the chat box and the other host will try to answer them as quick as possible. All right, with that, let's dive into the workshop. Here is the workshop structure, or what we'll be exploring today. So we'll be covering on understanding pet psychology, recognizing stress and emotion, supporting pet well-being, and strengthening the human-pet bond, coping strategies and self-care, and at the end, also be looking at a few reflections and takeaways. And we'd be starting with a quick activity here. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you a few videos. If you can put it down on the chat box, what you think means, okay? So look at this first video. If you can look at the cat's behavior and try to understand how is the cat behaving, what is the cat feeling? You can put it down on the chat box. Don't worry about it being, wrong or right. We're all here to learn. Some people are saying alert and curious, maybe anxiety. Okay, let's find out. Yes, the cat here is anxious, okay? So let's look at it again. It's hiding. It's not really forthcoming. It's more hiding, running away. So these are all signs of an animal being anxious. All right, let's try to decode the next one. Here there's a cat and a dog, but I want you to focus on the dog. Try to understand the dog's behavior. How do you think the dog is feeling? Is it trying to attack the baby? Is it in a playful mood? What is happening here? Playful, worried and trying to protect, panic and trying to save food. Yes. So here, the dog is actually in a playful mood, okay? Here, let's see it again. See, it's trying to go from that corner to this corner, so it's just playing with the little baby. All right, let's look at the next one. Try to understand. Let's look at it again. Here, there are some cues also given below, so that might help you actually understand how the dog is behaving. Someone says social anxiety. Okay. So the dog here is fearful. As you can see, doesn't want to be left alone, is always on high alert, is always on defense mode, hides under the bed. So the dog is very fearful, okay? The next one. I think this is quite straightforward, but how do you think the cat is feeling? Loving and cuddles. Relaxed, yes. Yes, so most of you got it right. The cat here is feeling very loved and very relaxed. All right. So before we go on to the next slide here, I do just want to talk about a few animal behaviors that are quite common. I myself, I'm a pet parent. I have a little dog. He's an Indie. And something that really confused me when I initially got a pet is zoomies. I could never understand it. I saw it every day. It was very common, but I simply couldn't understand why my dog would always get these sudden bursts of energy. So I thought that I would share the information that I got based on the research that I did, when I was trying to understand the zoomies. So zoomies are actually called as frenetic random activity periods of FRAPs, and they're actually totally normal and common dog behavior. Here's a few breakdown of why dogs get them and what they signify about their mood. And I know that sometimes even cats get them, so it's not just limited to dogs. So the core reason for zoomies is a sudden release of pent up energy, excitement, or tension, and this can be triggered by a few circumstances. The first one is excess energy. This is the most common reason. If a dog has been resting or confined, like after being in a crate or home alone all day, they use zoomies as a quick and fun way to burn off that stored energy. Another main reason is also excitement and happiness. So they get a rush of positive emotion that can trigger them. They don't know what to do with it. So they often resort to getting the zoomies. And this often happens when maybe you arrive home, they get the zoomies during or after a particularly fun play session, or in a big open space like a yard or a park. Another reason could be a release of stress or tension. So ironically, zoomies can also be a reaction to a mildly stressful or overwhelming situation, allowing the dog to shake off that nervous energy. So common examples include after a bath, and this is something that my dog does. Every time after a bath, he gets the zoomies. Could also be because they're trying to dry themselves off, or it could also be a relief that it's finally over. Another reason or another situation would be after a visit to the vet or a grooming session, or when they are, overtired or overstimulated. Especially puppies get a lot of zoomies. So what do zoomies signify about their current mood? In most cases, dog getting the zoomies is a sign of a happy, playful, and energetic mood. It is, like I said, a natural way for them to express joy and exuberance. However, it's helpful to look at the context and the dog's body language during the zoomies as well. Okay, so overall, zoomies are generally considered a normal and healthy outlet for dogs, physical and emotional needs. Another one that I wanted to touch upon, and this is something that my fellow cat lovers, were asking me about or just having discussions, is why do my cats throw things off? Why do they love throwing things off the table? And this is the most fundamental reason is it's hunting instinct and exploration. Cats are natural predators, and their behavior often mimics the steps they would take when hunting prey. So there are a couple of reasons why they do this, why they, try to feel things around with their paws. First one is testing for life. So a cat will use its paws to poke and prod a small, maybe stationary object like a pen, a paperweight, or glass to see if it's alive or will move. And by batting it, the cat stimulates a common hunting tactic, which is testing prey to see how it reacts. Second one is the movement reward. So when the object falls and rolls or bounces, it creates movement, which is inherently interesting and rewarding to a cat's prey dive. They enjoy the quick burst of action and sound. The last thing here is sensitive paws. So cats use the highly sensitive paw pads to explore the world and gather information about an object's texture or shape and stability. And pushing it over is a very hands-on or paws-on way of investigating. Another reason that I do want to talk about here is it can be maybe attention-seeking behavior. Cats are highly intelligent and observant. They quickly learn that this specific action reliably gets a reaction from you or from their parent, and any reaction, even a negative one, is a form of attention to them. So it could be a learned response. So if you usually ignore your cat but jump up or talk to them or run over when they knock something over, they learn that, like knocking this makes the human pay attention to me. So they do it even more. Another reason could be asking for play or maybe food. They may be bored and want you to initiate a play session, or they may be hungry and have learned that a crashed item is a great way to remind you it's feeding time. Boredom and play. So indoor cats in particular need that mental and physical stimulation. If they don't have enough engaging toys or climbing opportunities or scheduled playtime, they will create their own fun. And impromptu toy, which is your belongings, become their playthings. They may simply find it entertaining to see what happens when the object falls and rolls around on the floor. So I just thought that would be a fun thing to explain to you both, all of you here. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here, which I'm going to talk about what pet psychology is and what we'll be talking about more in depth later on. But yeah, in simple terms, it's about understanding how animals think, how they feel, and how they behave. Just like humans, animals have emotional responses. They feel joy, they feel fear, they feel frustration, excitement, and even boredom. And pet psychology helps us understand and answer questions like, why does my dog bark when I leave? Or why does my cat knock things off the table? Like what I just told you. The goal here is to understand what emotion or need drives behavior. And most of what we call misbehavior is really communication. You know, it's your pets trying to tell you something because they don't speak the same language that we do verbally. So they need to express their emotions through actions. So yeah, I want you to think of one quirky behavior your pet has. Maybe they spin before sleeping, they hide toys, or they whine at night, and you can just drop that in the chat box. I think it'll be interesting to see what quirky, weird behaviors all of our pets have. And yeah, remember that behavior is the window to the mind, and if we observe with curiosity and not judgment, then we can truly connect with our pets. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Okay. So pets are more than just companions, okay? Our pets are not just companions, they're their own sentient beings with emotional and psychological needs. And viewing pets as sentient beings means acknowledging that they possess the capacity to experience feelings, sensations, and conscious awareness, distinguishing them from mere objects or biological machines. And this perspective is supported by growing scientific evidence showing that animals have complex neurological structures capable of processing emotions like joy, fear, anxiety, and pain. They form very deep attachments, they demonstrate personality traits, and engage in intentional communication. And by recognizing this sentience, we move beyond the traditional label of companion to accept a moral obligation rooted in their well being. This shift requires us to treat their behavioral signals like aggression or destructive habits, not as willful acts of disobedience, but as complex expressions of their emotional and psychological state, demanding empathetic understanding and targeted support from their parents. So, this elevated view fundamentally changes the nature of our relationship from one of ownership to one of caregiving and stewardship. So, if a pet is a sentient being, our focus must extend beyond providing basic needs like food and shelter to include emotional and environmental enrichment. This involves actively managing their stress, preventing suffering, and ensuring they have opportunities to express natural behaviors. When we acknowledge their inner lives, we become advocates for their quality of life. Understanding that their happiness is as valid as our own, this paradigm shift from pets as property to pets as individuals with inherent worth is crucial for advancing animal welfare standards and fostering a deeper, more ethical bond with the non-human individuals who shares our lives. And that's what pet psychology is all about. It's shifting our lens from what's wrong with them to what are they trying to tell me. So yeah, that's about this slide. Now we move on to the next slide, which will be covered by Rini. So Rini, over to you.
Thank you, Anyasha. So I would like to start off my part, with a question for you guys. So would you consider, bad behavior as always misbehavior or emotional distress? So if it's things like barking, chewing, refusing commands and such, how would you classify that usually with your pets? You guys can put it in the chat box if you would like. Yatika says emotional distress. Yeah. While I wait for you guys, if you would like to share, for decades, things like dog training, they primarily focused on obedience, sit, stay, heel, and assuming that all behavior stemmed from discipline or dominance issues. But modern research in, pet psychology and canine psychology and neuroscience, they all told a different story. Dogs and other pets, much like humans, have emotional lives that are deeply intertwined with their behaviors. John B says fear of abandonment sometimes. Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. And with all that you guys are thinking or potentially saying, even Living Room says no. Yeah, we'll be exploring this a lot more as we go forward. Whether what we classify as bad behavior, what it could mean, whether it really is a behavioral issue, or if there are many more things that are lying underneath. What we often call naughty or stubborn might actually be a cry for help. A dog who tears up furniture when left alone might not be defiant, they might be anxious or lonely or overwhelmed. If a cat is urinating all over like new furniture, it could be a territorial issue, an anxiety issue. Their so-called bad behavior is often the body's attempt to communicate what words cannot. So today we're going to shift our lens from control to compassion, to see dog behavior not as something to correct, but something to understand. And for everyone here, please note that moving forward, we will be primarily focusing on pet psychology in relation to dogs, but a lot of what we discuss can also be laterally applied to other pets like cats. Could you move into the next page, please? Right. So do dogs experience mental health like humans? Yes, absolutely. Dogs experience mental health states, just like humans. Their emotional brains, like the limbic system, they operate in very similar ways. Dogs can develop anxiety, which could be marked by restlessness, clinginess, or even destructive acts like, chewing up things, or just kind of disobeying your usual routines or orders. They can experience depression. So this is where they might withdraw, they'll lose interest in play, or they might sleep excessively, kind of like humans, right? And there actually have been a lot of cases where dogs show signs that are consistent with post-traumatic stress, especially for rescue dogs or those that came from very abusive homes and environments. The challenge is that dogs cannot say, I'm sad, or I'm scared, or I need this, I need that. So they express distress through behavior. The loud ones will bark, whine, or act out. The quiet ones tend to retreat, or they'll lose their appetite, or seem detached. And as was said before by Anyasha, they all react differently to whatever it is that they're going through, whatever they're struggling with, even how they're enjoying things. It does depend on the animal and their own personalities that they do have. As a lot of you that are pet lovers or pet owners, I'm sure you'll know, no pet is the same, even if it's the same breed and from the same house. Now, in relation to this, unfortunately, many owners tend to misinterpret, these signs as if it's defiance or acting up, when in reality, they're coping mechanisms. So once you guys are able to recognize the shift from behavior as defiance to behavior as distress, you'll be building the foundation of mental wellness for your pets. So could you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So just as with humans, a dog's stress rarely comes from one source. It's usually a combination of factors that build over time. So first, we have environmental stressors. So things like loud noises, chaotic households, or long hours in confinement. These all impact, a dog's sense of safety. Then there's also social and emotional stressors. So, these affect their attachment system, which is very important for their well-being. So things like loneliness, neglect, or unstable relationships with their humans can cause deep insecurity. And finally, physical and biological stressors. So things like pain, hormonal imbalance, poor diet, or lack of exercise, especially tailored to the breed. All of this can alter their brain chemistry and their mood. And importantly, all of these stressors overlap. So a dog or any pet that's understimulated physically might become anxious socially. A dog with chronic pain may grow fearful or aggressive, and stress accumulates quietly until it shows up as very visible behavior. So hopefully, what we'll be discussing next will be helpful for you guys, if not just to gain a little bit of extra knowledge. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So we'll be starting off with environmental stressors. So dogs' nervous systems are highly sensitive to their environment. So noise stress is a major trigger. Fireworks, thunder, or even traffic can activate a dog's fight or flight response. So for many, it's not just a mild fear, it's full panic. Their heart rate spikes, cortisol starts to flood their bodies, and their brain essentially says, you are not safe. So I don't know if any of you guys had experienced this, but I remember during Diwali, when I was walking around town, I saw so many dogs that were, just running anywhere to try to escape the noise from all the firecrackers. Even my own dogs were terrified. They refused to eat. They couldn't sleep. They were shivering. They kept, pacing back and forth. Like they were anxious. They were scared. They did not feel safe. And, there was no way to truly communicate, like verbally, how to make them feel safe. So we had to find other ways to kind of keep their panic at bay. But these are very, very real things that really can disrupt, their feeling of peace and safety. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And then the next thing would be chaotic homes. They can be equally stressful as well. So constant movement, shouting, or unpredictable schedules can prevent dogs from relaxing. So unlike humans, the dogs can't rationalize, saying, oh, it's just a busy day. They internalize chaos as insecurity, even if it's just, a lack of a predictable schedule. Over time, that stress, as I said, it does accumulate, and they start to show it in their behaviors. And then we have long confinement. So dogs that are left alone for extended periods in crates or small apartments with no stimulation or very little stimulation, they often start to show signs of depression. They might lose interest in their surroundings, or they might engage in repetitive behaviors. So that's why when the dog chews up the couch, let's say, it's not rebellion, it's an anxiety response, a release of pent-up energy and distress. So, understanding the shift, understanding this, it really can help in how we respond, from punishment to curiosity. When you start to see these signs, it's good to reflect and think, what's driving them to this behavior? Is it something in the home where they feel like they can't rest? Has there been a lot of noises or unpredictability in their lives? Have they been not as stimulated? Have they felt, a bit too confined for too long at one place? So I hope this is something that you guys can reflect on if you ever do see it happening. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next we have social and emotional stressors. So dogs, like humans, are social creatures. Their emotional stability depends on secure attachment, just like us, right? Separation anxiety is a prime example of this. It's not about boredom, it's rooted in panic. Dogs with this condition often anticipate abandonment the moment you reach for your keys, or maybe when they see a suitcase near the door. It depends on their experiences, what's happened to them so far. Their destructive behavior, or even howling, clinginess, none of that is necessarily mischief. It's fear of being left alone in a world where they cannot control much. When you have a dog or any pet, pretty much most of their life is in your hands. Their routine is in your hands. How they get their food, where they get a lot of their enrichment, mental stimulation. A lot of that comes through you guys. And so, with that comes really great responsibility. And when they feel like that there is very little control, very little predictability in any environment that they are in, they might start to show signs of separation anxiety. Next, we have major family changes. So like moving homes, losing a companion, or even just a new baby that's come in the house. All of this could potentially trigger distress. Dogs don't understand these transitions cognitively. They feel them emotionally. So what looks like regression, such as indoor urination, if it's something they don't usually do, and they're suddenly doing it, it could actually be grief or confusion. And then there's harsh handling or conflict with other pets. This creates emotional insecurity. Dogs exposed to inconsistent discipline or maybe even hostility, they could develop learned helplessness or reactive aggression. Like, again, it really does depend on the dog themselves with the way that they react to things. But these are all, different stressors that could lead to them, developing these problems. And in all these cases, the behavior isn't something that needs to be fixed straight away. First, it's very important to reflect and look at a story that needs to be listened to. Like, we are in charge, essentially, for our pets to listen to what's happened to them, to see what's been done and what we can do next. Could you go to the next slide, please? Next, we have physical and biological stressors. So physical health is the foundation of emotional stability. Dogs experiencing chronic pain, from arthritis, dental issues, maybe some infection or an injury, they often appear moody or aggressive. And this isn't disobedience. It can just simply be discomfort. I mean, if, we take ourselves, for example, if you're in chronic pain, let's say you have terrible backaches, but you have to wake up, in the morning, you need to do all these chores, you need to get to work, you have to take care of so many people, depending on your job, your bosses, maybe assigning you a lot of different tasks. That can get very overwhelming. And with the pain you're already going through, it can feel too much. We might snap as well. And that's what we see a lot with dogs as well when they're in chronic pain. The way they might become very aggressive, for example. Next, we have lack of exercise or mental stimulation. This can actually lead to symptoms of depression. Dogs evolved to move, to explore, to problem solve. That's kind of what they were made for. Like, they used to run around the fields all day long, hunting and such. So when they're sedentary or unstimulated, their dopamine levels drop, which leads to lethargy or restlessness. And finally, nutrition plays a huge role. Poor quality diets, that lack essential fatty acids, vitamins, and proteins can all affect neurotransmitters like serotonin. So just like in humans, imbalanced nutrition can lead to mood swings and low energy. So all in all, before we assume behavior is psychological, we must rule out the biological. This is very important. So pain, exhaustion, or hunger are powerful mood disruptors. Next slide, please. Right, so behavioral signs of stress. Dogs communicate distress through their bodies and behaviors. The key is learning to interpret these signs. And again, while I do have to emphasize that it does depend on the dog as well, with their own personality, their own experiences, these are some more general things that is important to look out for. So excessive barking or whining is often communication, not defiance. It's the dog's way of saying something feels wrong. Aggression or reactivity usually masks fear. So a reactive dog, lunging on a leash, let's say, may not be dominant. They may simply feel unsafe and are trying to create distance. Then we have clinginess or withdrawal. So, these are two sides of emotional imbalance. Some dogs overattach, others retreat, and completely avoid. Both of these reflect a lack of emotional regulation. And then pacing or restlessness often signals, a nervous system that's on overload. So when cortisol stays elevated for too long, when there's too much stress that's been prolonged, dogs literally cannot relax. Their body is stuck in survival mode, and they're very good at being stuck in survival mode. Again, it's part of how they evolved in surviving. So recognizing these stress signals, seeing them not as bad manners but stress signals, they can hopefully change your approach from correcting to comforting them, which is what they all would need at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So, unlike humans, dogs cannot journal, meditate, go to talk therapy, or to discuss their stress and such. They rely entirely on their caregivers, on their humans, for regulation and recovery. And our role as owners or professionals is to create the conditions that allow healing. And those fall into 3 categories: environmental safety, so creating predictable, calm surroundings; emotional support, fostering trust, attachment, and positive experiences; and finally, physical care, so addressing exercise, nutrition, and medical needs. When all of these 3 align, the dog's nervous system, and with other animals as well, it begins to shift from survival to safety. And from that safety, emotional healing becomes possible. And it's amazing when that happens. Next slide, please. So we'll start off with environmental adjustments. So the environment is the dog's emotional landscape. Every dog needs a safe retreat zone. This is a quiet corner or bed where no one disturbs them. This becomes their decompression zone, signaling that rest is respected. This is their space. They own that area. It's solely for them. Next, we have a predictable routine. So this is another form of emotional regulation. So when you're feeding, walking, or, in bedtime, when all of these follow a pattern, the dog's brain starts to relax. Predictability reduces anxiety because it eliminates uncertainty. They know what's coming next, and that's just a huge load off of them. It takes a huge load out of that fear of not having any control in their lives, not knowing what they're going to be made to do. It really just does help them in general in their well-being. And then finally, we have my favorites, mental enrichment. So dogs crave stimulation, whether it's scent work, puzzle feeders, or rotating their toys like every few days, or maybe every day. You could do that as well. All of these can mimic natural problem solving. They don't just occupy their time, they build confidence and emotional resilience. So you can do these by simply, maybe hiding their favorite snack somewhere nearby, and you'll see how they react. They sniff, they search, and sniffing can actually increase serotonin and lower their heart rate. You can rotate, from like their chewable toys to playing fetch with them. With cats, maybe it's like, with their scratchers, for example, or then with playing around with catnip. All of these things, like switching them around, it keeps the novelty alive. It helps them feel stimulated and active without cluttering too much, without overwhelming them, which is something that can happen. So take it one bit at a time and see how your pet reacts. And with puzzle feeders, I would say, this extends their eating time, and it can help them feel stimulated and engaged, even for something as simple as eating. All in all, it just kind of helps them, just feel more engaged throughout the day. So if you could just press next, Anyasha. All right, so, to you guys, if there's one thing you'd like to try this week, any enrichment game or anything of the sort, have a think about it, right? If you want, you can definitely put it in the chat box. If not, if you just want to, have a think of what your pet would like to do next, just, go ahead. Like if it were me, when I first started doing it with my dog, I would hide treats around their favorite, corners of the house, and just kind of see like their nose twitch and how they just started, searching and pacing around, which was great because at the time They seemed to be, quite depressed. They weren't very engaged. They weren't moving much. But, starting to introduce little games like that, it made them feel, just excited, more playful. So I would definitely recommend this for you guys. If you want to start off with just hiding treats around the house, you can see how your pet's mood changes, when their brain is tickled by curiosity and not stress. Could you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So this section is about emotional regulation through relationship. So for dogs with fear or trauma, gradual desensitization is the most effective approach. So for example, if your dog is terrified of thunder, start by playing a very low thunder sound while they're eating. Very low. Okay, and again, you can adjust it to your dog's comfort level. Pair the sound with comfort and safety. Some people might even kind of pair that as background noise while putting, their sweater next to their dog to make them feel a bit safer. And over time, you can increase the volume slightly. So their brain will slowly relearn, okay, this sound does not mean danger. They won't necessarily love it at the end of it, but they may not have to panic every time that they hear it. Things like positive reinforcement is equally crucial. By rewarding calmness and curiosity rather than punishing fear. But punishment amplifies anxiety. It teaches dogs that expressing distress leads to more fear. And then finally, build emotional safety through bonding time. Focused play, like what I talked about in the previous slide, gentle touch even, or just simply being calm together. It teaches the dogs co-regulation. Their nervous system starts to sync with ours. In simple terms, love and consistency are stronger medicine than correction or control. Next slide, please. And finally, we have physical care. So this is the most practical but often overlooked aspect of mental health. Dogs need exercise that's suited to their breed and age. So, for example, a young border collie needs mental and physical challenge, while maybe an older pug just needs gentle, short walks. Proper exercise releases endorphins. It reduces anxiety and it promotes deep sleep. All of these are essential for mental balance, for us and for dogs. The nutrition directly impacts brain chemistry. So diets that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, good quality protein, and micronutrients, they all improve serotonin regulation and cognitive health. A poor diet, on the other hand, can show up as irritability, as lethargy, or even inconsistent moods. And as always, veterinary checkups, many behavioral issues have physical roots, as we did, look into earlier. There's thyroid imbalances, chronic pain, dental discomfort. All of these can cause irritability or withdrawal. So before labeling, any behavior as psychological, social, emotional, any of that, I cannot stress this enough. Please rule out the physical first, right? So when the body is well cared for, the mind follows. So that's it from me. I will leave the next section to Shweta.
Yes, thank you, Rini. So let's start debunking some of the most common myths about pet emotions and behavior. So we being as pet parents, it's very easy to humanize our pets in some ways. And yet we underestimate their emotional world in others. But, modern research in animal psychology and neuroscience tells us that, pets have rich emotional lives, but they just, express them differently. Right? Okay. So talking about the myth number one, pets don't feel emotions the way humans do. So the fact is, study shows dogs and cats experience a full range of emotions: joy, fear, anxiety, even grief. So their brains release the same neurochemicals as ours. the same like, oxytocin, which bonds us to them, and cortisol, which rises when they are stressed. So when your dog looks guilty or your cat hides under the bed, that's not drama, that's emotion. So myth number 2. Anyasha, could you just press on click? Yes. Another one. Yes. So myth number 2 is if a dog or a cat is destructive, it's just being naughty or being, yeah, or badly trained. So in reality, destructive behavior often comes from stress or separation anxiety or sheer boredom. So they are not being bad, but they are communicating distress the only way they can, right? Okay. Next, can you move to the next slide? Yes. So myth number 3 says that, just a minute. Yeah. So it says cats are aloof and they don't get stressed. But 1 second. Yeah. Am I audible? Yes. Okay. So in truth, cats are incredibly sensitive to change. They move a piece of furniture or, bring a new guest home, can trigger them like, withdrawal or anxiety. So often their silence doesn't mean their calmness. It often means they are coping quietly, right? Okay. So, see, all of these myths are really recognizing these emotional cues. They help us shift from, judgment to empathy, like from bad pet to stressed companion, where we understand much better, right? So, the next would be the myth 4, like pets grow out of their anxiety on their own. Anyasha, can you click the, yeah, and again? Yes, thank you. So, yeah, pets grow out of their anxiety on their own. It's a myth, but actually, without support, anxiety tends to worsen. Like, the early intervention through training, environment changes, or behavior therapy makes all the difference. Myth number 5, only humans can suffer from depression or trauma. This is like a heartbreaking misconception. Pets can experience grief after losing an owner or a companion and even develop PTSD like symptoms after neglect or abuse, right? So, rescue animals often carry deep emotional scars that need time, patience, and love. Also, myth number 6, giving more treats will make a stressed puppy or a pet happy. Treats might really distract, but they don't heal. What works better is, structure, predictable routines, safe spaces, and positive interactions. And finally, myth 7, pets behave to get back at us. Animals don't operate from revenge. They act out because they are anxious or confused, or, even if their needs aren't being met. Every unwanted behavior is just communication. So instead of asking what's wrong with my pet, a better question is what is my pet trying to tell me, right? Can you move to the next slide? Yes. Now let's make this interactive. Okay. So if your pet could bust one of these myths, which one would it be? A, I do feel emotions. I'm not a little robot. B, I'm not naughty. I'm just stressed or anxious. C, even as a cat, I get stressed easily. D, I won't just grow out of my anxiety. E would be yes, I can feel grief and sadness too. Anyone? Yes. Right. Right. See, every pet has their own emotions, and we, as being pet parents, we have to understand them. Right. D. Some people say C, some people say D. Right. I'm happy that you guys identify their behaviors. That's really nice. And could you go to the next slide? Okay. So, yes, this is quite personal. So, what's one small habit you could start tomorrow that would make your pet feel more emotionally secure? You can even interaction, okay. Type it on the chat box, or you can even think for a minute. What are these questions reflecting you and your pet? Okay, that's great. Having interaction makes them feel good about whatever they are going through. Maybe they're anxious, maybe they feel scared, or maybe they're even happy. So having an interaction with dog, maybe petting them, or just being around with them, makes them more confident and very happy. Okay, so we move forward. Yes, so we'll be talking about red flags. So here are some red flags that tell us, it might be time to seek a professional help for your pet's mental health. So, okay, like persistent barking, whining, or meowing without reason. So that's anxiety, that's disobedience, sudden changes in appetite or sleep. Just like in humans, they can signal emotion distress. So the third one would be aggression or withdrawal. So especially if it's out of character, often masks fear or frustration. So right, self-harming behaviors. Can you move to the next slide? Yes. So self-harming behaviors like over grooming or tail chasing or chewing their paws can even see that they have severe anxiety or obsessive behaviors. So, and when your pet starts showing fear towards an ordinary sound, like, a thunder or a vacuum cleaners or even strangers, that's another sign of they are really showing fear towards sounds and people. So, finally, loss of playfulness, or, energy or social interest may point out, depression. And definitely, yes, pets can lose their spark too, like humans. So once you have noticed these signs, who do you turn to help for? You can use the chat box, or you can talk out loud. Anything is fine. No answers. Okay, I'll go forward. So, yes. So who can help? The first step is to reach out. You don't have to figure it out alone, right? So start with your veterinarians. Many behavior issues stem out from physical discomfort, like how Rini said, pain, thyroid issues, or poor nutrition can mimic anxiety. So rule those out first. Okay. Next is certified animal behaviorists. So they specialize in addressing uh, psychological and behavioral challenges. So they can assess your pet's environment, triggers, and design training plans. In some cases, veterinarian psychologist or psychiatrist might step in too. So they can evaluate deeper mental health issues and when appropriate, prescribe medication too. So what happens here is we have to set up a positive reinforcement towards pet. So there are people who do that also. They are called like positive reinforcement trainers. They are also valuable. They help shape their behavior through reward and structure, not punishment. Right? So, and please remember, seeking help doesn't mean you have failed as a pet parent. It means like you care them deeply enough, to understand your pet's mind, not just their body. Just like humans need therapy, pets sometimes need behavioral enrichment, consistency, and medical support to heal. Okay. Can you move to the next slide? Right. This is about getting the right support. Yeah. Like I said, there is positive reinforcement trainers, addresses. Yes, seeking help doesn't mean, it's a failure. It's a sign of love and commitment. And pets, like humans, sometimes need therapy, structure, or medication to heal, right? Can you move to the next slide? Yeah. So, empowering pet parents. Here, let's just on a hopeful note say that, because pet mental health isn't just about problems, it's about connection and growth. And as pet parents, our job is to become our pet's voice, right? They can't tell us, like, I'm anxious or I'm feeling scared, or they can just show us how it's done, like through their behavior. So the more observant we are, the sooner we can intervene. Also, community is key. Talk to parents, pet parents, or trainers or vets. Join forums or workshops like this. The more we share, the more normalized it becomes to talk about pet emotions. And most importantly, remember that healing is possible. And with the right help, pets can recover, adapt, and thrive. So they can move from stress to cuddles. Okay. Before I drop off, I just want you guys to think for a moment of your own pet or one you've loved. What's the one thing you can do this week to strengthen their emotional well being? Ask yourself and make sure you do the thing towards them. So it could become a very safer environment for them. So every small act of empathy builds a safer emotional world for them. I'm handing over to Shruti. Shruti, can you go forward?
Yes, thank you, Shweta. So let's take a tiny pause here. I just want to share something that would actually help beyond today's session. Next slide, please. and that is one-on-one counseling. So what exactly is one-on-one counseling? Think of it like having a safe space where it's just you and a counselor sitting together and talking about what's on your mind. It's private, it's focused only on you, and it's completely confidential. Counseling can help you understand your thoughts and feelings better, deal with specific problems like anxiety, stress, or relationships. Next slide, please. So let's talk about a few counseling misconceptions. And I know that people might think that it's only for people who are sick, and that's the biggest misconception. Counseling is for anyone who wants to live a better version of themselves. It can help you build healthier relationships, make new friends, do better in academics, or even grow in your career. So counseling is not about weakness, it's about wanting to be stronger, healthier, and happy. Next slide, please. So why choose MindTribe? Well, here's why. They have really skilled and experienced counselors. It's affordable with sessions starting as low as $449. You can choose packages that fit your needs and budget. So you get professional support without feeling like it's out of your reach. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions right now, you can go ahead, or you can also text any one of us later if you have any questions regarding this. Next slide, please. So let's start with a little reflection. Think of a recent time when you felt stressed or anxious, maybe after a long day or when something did not go as planned. And now, if you have a pet, did you notice how they reacted to you in that moment? Sometimes they sit closer than usual, or maybe they'll bring their toy or just silently, stay beside us, almost as if they know. So I would love to hear from you. Did your pet ever sense your emotions like that? You type in the chat box, or you can raise your hand or unmute yourself to talk about it. Double says pets reflect our behavior. Yes. Okay, yes. Tamanna says they come lick my face. Yes, they do that all the time. And yes, that's the beauty of it. Pets may not speak our language, but they understand our energy. Just a second. They understand our energy and emotions, far better than we realize. And that's where pet psychology truly begins, in that silent connection. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about the human side. Now let's look at the human side of the relationship. Anyashi, can you please press enter? So pets are like pets are like emotional mirrors. Anyashi, you can just press enter and let all the photos be together. Yes. So pets are like little emotional mirrors. They often reflect what we feel. When we are anxious or upset, our pets may act differently too. They might become quiet, restless, or try to stay close to us. And when we are calm and consistent, they relax too. So just like children, they pick up our energy, tone, and mood. So has anyone here ever noticed their pet reacting to your stress or mood changes? And when they do that, when they react to our stress or mood changes, it shows that how deeply connected they are to our emotional world. But this connection also comes with accountability. When pets seems anxious or act out, it's not because they are bad pets, but sometimes it reflects unmet needs, like not enough structure, attention, or emotional reassurance from us. So, our role as pet parents is really about being consistent, providing routine, feeding, grooming, walking at fixed times, and being emotionally present through affection and play. When we care for them this way, something beautiful happens. We start feeling calmer, more mindful, and less lonely ourselves. Because caring for their mental health automatically nurtures ours. They look after our hearts, and we look after theirs. So now that we have understood how much pet reflects our emotions and how our energy impacts them, let's see how we can actively strengthen that bond. Next slide, please. So this part is all about small everyday actions that make a big emotional difference for both them and us. Shared routines like walks, playtime, or cuddling create a sense of predictability. Pets feel safe when they know what to expect, and that routine help us stay grounded too. Positive reinforcement, as mentioned before, is another key part. Rewarding the calm or desired behavior builds trust and emotional security. Like, for example, when your pet waits patiently before eating and you respond with a good job or a treat, you are not just training behavior, you are communicating trust. And these small, consistent actions from the base of a healthy human pet relationship. It's amazing how something as simple as, a daily walk or 10 minutes of play can strengthen the emotional bond so much. Next slide, please. So now that we have seen how our behavior shapes the bond, let's flip it a little and talk about how do they communicate with us. Because just like we send signals through words or tones, our pets are constantly communicating too, and we just have to learn to notice. So every pet has a language of their own through body language, posture, tail movement, and eyes. When we observe them closely, we start understanding what they are trying to say, whether they are happy, scared, or seeking comfort. It's also important to give them safe spaces like a cozy corner, familiar scents, their favorite toy, somewhere they can retreat when they need rest or calm. So, this helps them regulate their own emotions. And daily care like feeding, grooming, brushing might look like routine to us, but it's actually a form of bonding. It communicates love, safety, and presence. Like you might have noticed that your pet is getting super excited when they hear you pick up the leash or open that favorite food packet. And that is communication. It's very pure and joyful. So we have talked about emotional mirroring, routines, and communication. So now let's take a quick moment to reflect on what feels most meaningful to you personally. Next slide, please. So you can type it in the chat box. Which bonding activity feels most meaningful to you? Shared routines, positive reinforcement, quality time, communication, safe spaces, or care and grooming. Shared routines and care and grooming, yes. Interesting. Would anybody else like to say something? Yes, Diksha says shared routines and communication. Tamanna says communication, shared routines, and grooming. Yes, I can see a lot of you care and grooming. So yes, I can see a lot of you mentions quality time and care and grooming and shared routines. as well. And that really says a lot, because at the end of the day, it's not about fancy toys or treats, it's about time, attention, and love. So, to wrap up, pets are not just a part of our homes, they are a part of our emotional ecosystem. They teach us presence, patience, empathy, and unconditional love. And the most beautiful thing is, the care we give them always finds its way back to us. So, thank you. Now, Sanya will continue.
Thank you, Shruti, and thank you everybody that has presented before me. So now we're going into the final section of our workshop tonight. We'll focus a little bit more now about how us as pet parents are able to cope with the aid of our pets, as a lot of the workshop strictly focused on how the stress and mental health issues look like in the pets and what we might do for them for their enrichment. So now we'll focus a little bit on how it's a two-way relationship where the way we are impacting our pets, our pet impacts us as well. So we'll just dive into that in this section and use this relationship to ease our stress and anxieties that we might be feeling on really stressful or low days. So next slide, please, Anasha. Thank you. So let's first start with mindful interaction, which is practicing presence with the pets that you have. So what does this really mean? Mindful interaction, this phrase that I'm using. It kind of focuses on the modern life that we are living at the moment, where something is constantly pulling our attention in different directions. There's screens in front of our eyes. We're also doing housework. We are doing messages. We are working with talking with our families and being distracted. But when we do end up sitting with our pets, it's an opportunity to come back into the present moment and not focus on anything else. So in that sense, our pets are the masters of presence. They don't really think about anything else when they're sitting with us, right? They don't dwell on yesterday or worry about tomorrow. They're just sitting with us, enjoying that moment that they're sharing with us, responding to us with full attention. So in keeping that in mind, mindful interaction means engaging with your pet consciously. So when you're petting your dog or your cat or just spending time with whichever pet you have, it's about noticing the warmth of their body, the texture of their fur, their breathing, their reactions. So the kind of attention that is calming both of you because you're both present in that moment. It's mindful interaction in a way is then about slowing down and tuning in. So it's about giving your full attention, and it's not just about what the pet is doing or what you're doing, but to the sensory and emotional experience you're having in that moment. So one of the example to kind of think about when you're interacting with your pet in this way is to when you're stroking their fur, do you notice whether it's soft, it's rough, is there any warmth coming out of it? Are you able to detect the rhythm of their breathing or feel their heat against your body if they're lying down next to you? Are you able to observe how their body relaxes when you're petting them, or how your body relaxes once the quality time with them is going on for a while? So just a few seconds of this kind of very focused present and doing the petting with the intent of just petting your dog shifts our nervous system out of stress mode and into calm mode. So this happens with both our pets and us. And as Renee mentioned before about the biology that's behind it. So in this setting, when you're engaging mindfully with your pet, your body releases oxytocin, which is sometimes called, if you know about it, it's called a happy hormone. But in this setting, it's kind of like a bonding hormone. So the hormone lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone that's released in us and our pets when we are stressed. And it slows your heart rate down. And it also activates something that is called the parasympathetic nervous system that we have. This is the body's natural relaxation response. So both you and your pet relax together during this mindful petting, and it leads to you're able to feel this not just emotionally. You see your body physically relax, or you take a breath out. So there's quite good evidence that you see in the moment that the mindful interaction is helping you and your pets. I'm pretty sure if you're ever sat with your dog and you're petting them, you do hear them sigh quite loudly, like they've been working all day but they've just been relaxing because they're quite happy in that moment. To share that moment with you and doing it mindfully rewards both us and the pet. And this helps us a little bit to de-stress, because it's about training your mind to pause a little bit, that you're not thinking about anything else, observing your surroundings and connecting to your pets through your senses, which is the main principle of mindfulness meditation if you ever do get into it. So it's about that your meditation partner in this situation just happens to have paws, furs, and really cute whiskers. So one example I can give you about 5-minute grounding with your pet is you just sit with your pet quietly, put your phones away, no distractions. You close your eyes, you feel your pet's fur, you can just kind of pet them or hold their hand in a way, touch the softness and see how the rhythm of their breathing is, how you can feel their stomach go up and down when they're breathing. Stay like that for a couple of minutes, and then you can kind of ask yourself, oh, what did you notice? Were you present in this moment? To just share a moment with your pet that you would realize would also calm you down if you're feeling stressed, because it's a two-way relationship, as we've been discussing. So next is about routine and structure. So we've spoken a lot about it today, about how giving them structure helps de-stress your dog. They're able to predict how the routine is going to be like, so they don't have stress about if they won't be able to find food or not go to bed at time. But it also works for us pet parents as well if we reverse it a little bit. So having similarly as they enjoy having structure in their life, us having structure in our life does the same. Caring for a pet automatically create routines. So when you're feeding them, walks, playtime, grooming, these are repeated actions that anchor your day. So you're able to look forward to these things and kind of structure spending time with your pet when it's a point in your day when you think you'll be really stressed. That's when you do the things with your pet that relax you a little bit. Routine also works well for humans as it provides emotional stability in a way. When life feels uncertain, and has unpredictable patterns, having predictable patterns, even the small ones, help the brain feel safe, because that's one thing you don't have to worry about. You just automatically know what you're going to do next. And when we take responsibility for our pets, we also strengthen our own sense of self-efficiency, the quiet confidence that it is that you can handle things because you are taking care of another whole living being. So if you're able to do that, you know that you are self-sufficient in a way that you can take care of yourself as well. We've been talking a lot about the nervous system, so having a routine helps there as well. It signals to the body that things are under control. It reduces the fight or flight response that you usually feel when cortisol levels rise. So that is kind of sated. Even simple repetitive tasks like preparing your dog's meal, walking them at the same time each day, or brushing their coat reinforces that sense of order. I mean, when you're preparing your dog's meal, it's kind of like cooking. And I know cooking is one of the things that a lot of people find relaxing and decompressing in their daily life anyway. So when you're doing it with the full attention of your pet at your foot, it kind of just adds a more joyful and cute aspect to the cooking. In these moments, in these structure moments, your brain says that I know what comes next, and it reduces anxiety and promotes a feeling of safety within yourself. So it does help you de-stress as well. So some of the things that we've talked about is about feeding them on time, soothing them during stress, noticing their needs, and practicing these small achievable acts of competence together. So we can think about sometimes if you've done something for your pet, if you've fed them on time, if you've taken them out on time and they feel relieved and happy, how does that reflect towards yourself? And if you feel the kind of feel a little feeling of success and that you've achieved something good today, even if you've not done anything else, while being able to take care of your pet. Next, we will move on to pet assisted social connections. So this kind of focuses on building community bonds. So one of the most beautiful hidden benefits of being a pet parent is how it connects us to others, right? You might have noticed there are a lot of people when if you're walking your dog, they want to talk about your dog, say hello, or if you post pictures of your pet online, kind of comment how cute they are and want to know a little bit more about which breed they are, how long have you had them, what's their name, and kind of have a social conversation in a way. And so in that way, our pets are natural social bridges for us as humans. As I've been talking a lot about how the modern times are, social anxiety or urban isolation at this moment is very high in our lives, and it can make social connections feel really difficult to form. Pets, as I've said, lower those barriers for us. They spark spontaneous interaction. There's common ground to talk to somebody. If you're walking your dog in the park and you see another person has the same breed, you might stop, say hello, talk a little bit about your dog, and kind of form that connection on shared joy and common connection, especially in the cities where loneliness is one of the quietest yet the most widespread form of stress in the current world. People feel they're surrounded by a lot of people, but they don't feel deeply connected with anybody. From work, from home lifestyles, mostly digital communication. Genuine face-to-face connection has become quite rare, but if you have a pet and you do take them for walks, you're able to experience other people around you and see that there are other people who are sharing the same connection with you. And in this case, the pets, they act as social catalysts. So they just give you a reason to talk to somebody and have a conversation rather than just being at home and not talking to anybody. Like I was saying, if you take your dog for a walk, strangers smile, children come and try to touch your dog, talk about your dog, and it kind of creates a bridge to have social communication, especially for people who experience social anxiety. This is quite powerful. It lowers the stress that they feel by just going up and approaching somebody. But when you have a dog and you can have a conversation about the dog, it kind of gives you a crutch to stand on to have the conversation. So it helps quite a lot in that aspect as well. So just if you can quickly think about any connections, social connections with friends or even extended family that you've made where the conversation was about your pet and that's how the conversation or relationship grew, that would be kind of the perfect way for this example, because through our pets, we learn to connect with others, to smile and to greet and to belong in a community that loves pets together. Next slide, please. Then we move on to emotional expression through pets. So sometimes the hardest part of being human is trying to express what we feel, especially when we're upset or distressed. So pets can make this easier for us. They listen without judgment, they comfort us without words, and they never interrupt, which is something it's very hard to experience when you're having a conversation with a human. But unless you have a really vocal pet, then I guess they might bark or meow at you while you're trying to talk to them. But in most cases, they don't. I'm pretty sure with all the people we have here today that have pets that you have had a conversation with them when you're upset, stressed, or sad, just kind of vented at them. The simple act of just talking to somebody releases emotional safety. It's a gentle, neutral form for emotional regulation because if you are interested or have received mental health care before, you might have heard of journaling. So in a way, you are journaling because your journal never talks back to you. You're just saying it to your pet. So it's just a verbal form of journaling where you can talk about your day, went about what is stressing you out, and just talk to your pet. Just talk at them, I guess. and share your emotions. Talking about journaling, now that it's come up, you can also use your pets as journaling prompts. So you can write from your pet's perspective. If you're having a really tough day, for example, and it's impacting your self-esteem, you can just always have a journal prompt ready and kind of talk about if your pet was the one who would describe who you are, what would your pet say? Or how do you think your pet perceives you as somebody who takes care of them and loves them unconditionally? What kind of values or what kind of strengths they might see in you that you might miss if you're having a tough day? And it can also talk about the feelings that you feel of guilt, gratitude, love, and grief in your life that might come from a pet or just generally. The pets, when you're talking to them, they don't criticize, they just listen with warmth, curiosity, and their presence, the way mindful interaction works. And they're just there to provide you a safe emotional container in a way. It's a free space, right? You can say anything. You can cry, vent, or confess without the fear of being misunderstood or judged. You're just feeling what you're feeling in the moment. So if you look at from a psychological standpoint, it is kind of a form of emotional regulation, the ability to identify, express, and manage your emotions in a healthy way because you are processing them and you are saying it out loud rather than holding on to your emotions and kind of bottling them in. Even if your pet is not understanding the words you're saying, the act of speaking out loud can help organize your internal experience and validate it. If you're angry, you're able to lash out. It turns emotions into language, which is one of the brain's natural ways of reducing stress anyway. So one practice you can do just after this workshop, if you're interested, you can just tell your pet how the workshop was and how you spent your time and energy today learning how to provide a better life for them and all the things that you did learn in the workshop. It can help you recap the thing that you learned and also tell your pet what you learned today and see how that kind of affects your mood. Lastly, we still have 2 points to go. So first, we have pet proofing, which is designing places that heal. So we all know how our environments deeply affect our mood. The same goes for our pets. So pet proofing really isn't just about trying to keep your pet safe. It's about from like wiring or things that can hurt them, but it's about creating shared spaces that calm both of you. So you can take an example of maybe a corner in the home that you can call the healing corner, where the light is soft, there is fresh air, minimal noise, so your pet doesn't get stressed. And you can kind of sit and relax with your pet in that spot and share the mindful interactions there, have a conversation, just do things together. So whenever there is a stressful situation for you or your pet, you can both kind of retreat to the safe corner in the room and spend some time together. Lastly, we do go to pet painting. So this is about artful connections and emotional expression. We all know that art gives us a safe way to express things that words can't. So when we bring our pets into the process, you're able to celebrate the emotional connection you share in a creative way. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful, perfect piece of art. It's more about just translating your emotion towards your pet, turning love, loss, or gratitude into color and form. I know I keep saying art and painting, and the first thing that probably popped in your head that you're not really an artist, but like I said, that's not the point here. Pet painting is not about talent or technique, it's about expression. So being able to find a visual language for emotions that words can't fully capture. You might have seen videos online where people put peanut butter on a plastic sheet and then they put a lot of colors on a paper in the sheet and let their dogs lick the peanut butter. So as they're licking, they kind of make a pattern on the paper, and that's how they do art together. Or people who do paw prints, so they get a hollow print of their pet's paw and then they kind of fill it in with different designs, textures, glitter, colors, and stuff like that to kind of hang together to just signify that you're spending time together and making something creative out of it. So it's mostly like symbolic processing. It doesn't have to be something quite exact. you're taking something abstract like affection, grief you're feeling, or comfort that you're feeling in a moment, giving it shape and in color. And in doing so, that emotion that you're feeling becomes tangible, something you can see, touch, and later reflect on together. So those are some of the few pointers where you can spend time with your pet that impacts both their mental health and your mental health in the positive way, and how, as I've been saying, it's a two-way relationship. If you're here to support them, they might be able to support you in the same way by providing you a safe and safe place to express your emotions and just hang out together in a way that's beneficial. Can we go next slide, please? So then one question for you all, with all the strategies that we've discussed right now, which one of these would you think you'd give a try? If you want to just drop your answers down in the chat box, that would be great. All right, no worries if not. So next slide, please, Anyasha. We'll just quickly do a recap now that we are at the end of the workshop. What were the main key takeaways that we focused on today? So just like humans, dogs experience stress, anxiety, fear, and even depression. Their emotions are deeply influenced by environment, routines, and the energy of their caregivers. When a dog, I know we keep saying dog, but do consider this that it would be the same for other pets, but dogs are statistically more likely to be pets. That's why most of the information out there is based around dogs. So when a dog barks excessively, destroys furniture, or withdraws from play, it's really bad behavior. It's communication. Behavior issues are often emotional signals. So that's how your pet signals that they feel unsafe, lonely, or overstimulated. And there are a lot of studies that have been done that show that a pet's emotional health mirrors the human emotional states. So chronic stress, the way it does for human, can in pets also lead to weakened immunity, digestive problems, and compulsive behavior. So recognizing their emotional worlds help us to move from discipline to empathy, where we are understanding that behind every behavior that we might think that the pet is doing, there's a feeling because of it. So recognition here is key. Look out for these things. If the changes in these behavioral shifts appear, then something might be wrong. If there is sleep disturbances, appetite changes, energy variation, overgrooming, or scratching, then something under the surface is going wrong. And common triggers for such could be loud noises, long period of isolation, household tension, or putting the pets in unfamiliar environments. Being able to identify these early signs, we're able to intervene before the stress becomes chronic and preventing long-term anxiety or behavior decline in your pet. As always, as you must have heard in your life, that early intervention in anything is a strength. So it might help the pet kind of focus on the problem before, and then they know that they're safe and they have somebody who's taking care of them. There needs to be structure and safe spaces around the house, have a routine, consistent feeding, walking, and rest times. It's good to create a pet-proof comfort zone for relaxation and safety. Any of the mindful interactions you do can happen in this corner. Whenever you're feeling stressed, they're feeling stressed, you can kind of retreat in that corner together and give each other support and comfort and know that the love goes either way. Creating pet-proof comfort zone comes into that. Then, as Rini discussed in detail, talking about enrichment, so toys, scent, games, calm music, and then just a gentle touch goes a long way. As we discussed, it releases oxytocin that helps in reducing cortisol, so the stress levels physically go down as well. Next slide, please. And then just a quick recap of mindful interaction. So practice presence during play on petting. Notice texture, breathing, maintain eye contact. It helps calm both the paw parent and the pet, and it builds trust and emotional safety. creative expression and healing, trying pet painting, journaling, or storytelling to express emotions, as art strengthens empathy and transforms experience into healing. And just a reminder, as always, if you see the red flags or if your pet is in constant distress that you're not able to aid with, please seek professional help when needed. Just like for us, if we were not feeling well, we would go to the doctor. The pets needed to. Is just that they're not able to express it verbally, but they show it in their behavior. Quite, it's quite easy to understand by their behavior that they're struggling. And I really hope after all the information that we've shared today, you're able to see some of those behaviors if they are under distress, and kind of work on fixing that distress for them by taking them to the doctor or spending more time with them, rather than just writing off the behavior as being naughty or just bad behavior in general. So just a final thought that caring for your pet's mind is an act of love, one that reflects back on your own well-being. When you nurture their emotional world, you nurture empathy, patience, and connections within yourself, which are very good traits to have in life generally. And just one last quote for you, if you can go to the next slide, Anyasha. Pets can speak, but only to those who listen. So with that, we have come to the end of our workshop here today. Thank you so much for joining us. You can just go to the next slide, Anyasha. Thanks. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and we can have a discussion. Otherwise, please feel free to drop off. And thank you again for coming today. Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, please, I want to know regarding the tail positions of the pet. Can we estimate their mood, like mood, which kind of mood are they? They're just are they comfortable or are they worrying like that?
Yes, to a level you can. From experience and from the research we have done, we do see that when the pet is stressed or when they're scared, their tail goes within their legs. They kind of hide it. So if that is one of the signals, then maybe it's good to see what's wrong or kind of give them their space if they're scared. When they're playful, it wags, it's quite erect, or it kind of swings left and right, which is inviting to play. And just not with the tail. If your pet is under stress or not feeling great, I think there will be other signs as well. They will cower away from you or they would bite things. So that is also even a better indicator that they're under stress. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you explain again what is meant by pet proofing?
Your voice is cracking a little bit. Could you repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you explain again what is meant by pet proofing?
Pet proofing? Sure. Anyasha, could you go back to the pet proofing slide? Right, thank you. So pet proofing is more about creating the environment in your house or a section of your house that is safe for the pet to be around. It could be putting their favorite toys in the same place, putting things that also bring you calm, so your energy is also calm while you're spending time with them. It's kind of like, for example, if you see in some of the houses, people have a place where they go and read books by the window that has a good view, kind of a feel-good section. So that is the kind of way you set up this section where you can spend time with your pet, that can indicate to the pet that if they're ever stressed, they can go into this space and that's a safe space.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, and another question is, and suppose we brought another pet to our home, so how can we establish a kind of friendliness between both?
There are a lot of ways to do that. I'm really sorry, we're not really an expert in that. You might be able to find that information out from animal welfare websites better. But it's usually about kind of slowly introducing each them to the smells first before the actual animal, and kind of associating that smell with positive reinforcement. So giving them treats around the other animal's smell, so they associate the smell with the positive thing, and then just taking it slow. But I apologize again. Our topic was quite generic, and that we're not really experts when it comes to this.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, one more question is, so one of my dog has a lot of social anxiety and won't go out for walks if I won't take him. When I'm not in town or at work, he won't even go for a walk. I'm sorry to hear that, Tamanna. It's probably because he has the attachment just with you that he doesn't go out for walks with anybody else. If you create a safe enough environment in the house and spend mindful time with him, maybe his anxiety might go down and he will be able to go out in places. Maybe start by taking him to places that are not too crowded, so he can start feeling safe again in the environment that's outside. Do reward good behavior. So if he's able to go out for a walk and do his business, maybe give him a treat so he knows that when he's doing that, that everything's good. No worries. The team will be sharing their profiles in the group chat after the workshop's over. So if you want to reach out to them, you will be able to do it through that. Otherwise, you can always go to the mindtribe.in website and contact any of our counselors from there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining again tonight. Please feel free to drop off. Have a good rest of your night. Thank you.